The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. Pat, you're familiar with these veterans groups like the American Legion, there's the Elks Club, and all these different veterans groups.
I have family members who are members of these organizations. So yes, I'm
not super familiar with the differences between them, but I know that the American Legion is the largest veterans service organization in the country. Although I don't know their general politics, generally speaking, these are not the most liberal groups in general, are they?
I don't think so,
No.
although it does sound like they have quite a bit of political power to use in some form.
Well, the American Legion is now requesting that the Schedule I designation of marijuana be changed because they want more research into the medical uses of cannabis. And they believe that treating vets suffering from traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, a number of conditions, that it could all benefit if we were able to more easily do research into the medical uses of marijuana. This is great. I wish that it didn't take, it is an interest group, right? So it makes sense that they are going to request what's in the interest of their constituents. The truth is that it makes sense for so many reasons to reschedule marijuana away from being a Schedule I drug. We've talked about this so many times before. Schedule I is a designation by the federal government for the most addictive and harmful drugs that have no possible medical uses. How you could have heroin in the same list as marijuana on that basis, it's totally beyond me. And I think that this is something that should have happened a long time ago. I don't know if it will happen anytime soon.
Well, I think this is a good tactic because you're combining this way the veterans issue with marijuana.
Right.
And of course, of those two issues, when it comes to marijuana, Trump just seems ambivalent towards it. I don't think he's taken a declarative position on it one way or another.
Yeah.
But he seems to be well in support of the veterans, and I'm sure that's part of the reason how he was able to get elected. So now, as president, you'd think that he'd have to listen to them, and if this is what they're calling for, maybe he would respond accordingly.
Yeah, but if Jeff Sessions gets his ear 5 minutes before he has to make a decision, Jeff Sessions, the guy who used to think the KKK was pretty cool until he found out that they smoke pot, you're not exactly going to get agreement, I think, between the American Legion and Trump's lying attorney general, Jeff Sessions, at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure the American Legion would come to Trump with an hour-long meeting about the benefits of marijuana when it comes to, reduction of pain, of, cancer treatments and glaucoma, and how it can treat all of these different ailments. And then Jeff Sessions will come in at the end and speak to him for 5 minutes and say, good people don't smoke marijuana.
And Trump will then be against the decriminalization, the rescheduling of it, et cetera. So logical. I mean, it's weird that it's even news that the American Legion is saying this because it's so obvious, but because of the circumstances we have in the U.S. with so many groups still ideologically opposed to legalization, decriminalization, and rescheduling, importantly, it is actually news.
Yeah, and I think because the American Legion is comprised of veterans, those people may be against breaking the law, even if it means, getting medicine that would help them. So I think that's why they have to push for this change, because people who would benefit off of marijuana but are otherwise deterred from getting it because it's illegal are most affected right now.
That's an interesting point as well. Yeah. There was a bizarre scene on an airplane in Shanghai, China, about 36 hours ago, maybe 48 hours ago. A belligerent man wearing one of those red Make America Great Again hats was kicked off of a plane before it took off in Shanghai on Sunday, waving as a crowd of passengers screamed, lock him up," as the guy walked by. We don't yet know who the man was. We don't know if Chinese police ended up putting the man in jail. This was a United Airlines flight. Passengers described that the man started arguing before getting onto the plane, that he was provoking what took place there. This was a flight scheduled to go from Shanghai to Newark. The man took an aisle seat on the plane and then refused to let anyone sit next to him. Now, if a flight is full, understandably, people are going to need the seats next to yours. He apparently was insisting on having the entire row to himself. He was leaning back in his seat with his hands folded behind his red hat, feet propped up on an armrest on another row. And eventually, after something like, I don't know how many minutes, 30, 45 minutes, he ended up getting kicked off the plane because he just wasn't cooperating. And then everybody started yelling, lock him up, as the guy went on a belligerent rant.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It reminds me of a couple months ago when we did a story about spring breakers in Cancun chanting "Build that wall."
Right.
It's like that rhetoric doesn't really work because you're in a foreign country. This whole America first and kick out the foreigners thing doesn't exactly work when you're at an airport in Shanghai.
Yeah, and the guy insisted that it was all a political witch hunt. He said something like, "I know people don't like my hat." He was berating a female passenger, reportedly calling the female passenger Hillary. Then he called the female passenger a lesbian. Then he referred to a stewardess as sweetheart in a sort of sarcastic and condescending way. And then he was asked to leave the plane. And that's when the guy just completely blew up. Police had to get on and carry the guy off. And what a disaster.
Yeah.
And just an embarrassing disaster.
It just sounds like he's a special snowflake who needs to get back to his safe space. I mean, you got to understand, if you're wearing one of those hats, obviously you have the freedom to do so, at least in this country. But, you're going to be judged by it, especially because the president is not too popular right now. And he's especially unpopular around the world.
Is it right? What's his popularity in China, I wonder?
It's probably in the teens.
Although,
I know the Philippines, it was like 14%.
What was the country where people really liked him?
Ooh, I don't know.
Wasn't it the Philippines?
No. You'd think so, maybe, because Duterte is an authoritarian.
Oh, right. No. Yeah, we were
dictator,
surprised that despite...
It was very low.
It was actually low, yeah. I don't remember what country it was, but there was I don't know why, maybe Singapore is in my mind.
Okay.
Anyway.
Make Singapore great again?
Singapore is going to be great really soon, as soon as Trump visits. Are you familiar, Pat, with straight ticket voting?
Not exactly.
Okay,
no.
So straight ticket voting is when you go to vote, you might have Democrats or Republicans running at a number of different levels: president, Senate, House of Representatives, state senator, mayor in cities that have partisan mayoral elections. It could be anything. Sheriff sometimes, judges, whatever. Straight ticket voting allows you to, instead of making a vote on each one of these ballots, or races, you basically check Republican or Democrat for your entire ticket, and it will automatically fill in that you're voting for all the Democrats or all the Republicans. I don't like this.
See, I thought maybe it was just having the parties listed on the ballots, because that effectively does the same thing. I mean, you have to go down and check every single one.
Right.
But a lot of times people think, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm liberal or conservative, I'm just going to go down, and even though I don't know these candidates, I'll pick for them anyway.
No, I mean, if a race is a political race, so in other words, for the president, you're always going to see Democrat or Republican. There are some elections, like, for example, the Northampton, Massachusetts mayoral election, which I'm familiar with. There's no party designation. You just see names on the ballot. It's not, there's no party sort of announced. Straight ticket ballot is just one check. Any of the politically declared races, you're voting for one party or the other. Texas has eliminated straight ticket voting. So you will no longer in Texas be able to go and just fill in, I'm voting for all the Democrats or I'm voting for all of the Republicans. Okay, this is a good thing. Iowa did the same thing this year. I don't know that it's drastically going to change anything, because if you intend to do a straight ticket vote, it'll just take you an extra 15 seconds or something like that to see which one has an R next to their name or which one has a D next to their name. But I like the gist of it, which is actually make people make a decision on each individual race and just saying all Democrats or all Republicans. Maybe it's a small victory, but it is Texas after all.
That's why I think you should just take the parties completely off of the ballots altogether, because that incentivizes you to actually research into their campaigns and get a little bit more knowledgeable when it comes to the issues.
I don't disagree with the reason that you would want to see it, but when you have, like for president, you've got a Democratic primary, a Republican primary, when you've got the House of Representatives where the balance of power is so important, I think providing the information of who's the Democrat and who's the Republican, I do think that that's something we should be doing, but I would like it if people were actually more informed about the candidates.
I think the problem comes at the bottom of the ballot when you're dealing with maybe judges or people that go on the governor's council, these smaller offices, because oftentimes people don't even know who the candidates are. And if they see a D or an R next to their name, they'll just pick that one.
That's why on those races, I actually think it's good that you don't run as a Democrat or as a Republican. Rather than eliminating, the ability to vote for a full, a straight party ticket, just don't have some of these be political races. And that way, hopefully people would have to be somewhat informed about what the positions are.
I'd be interested to see what states and jurisdictions have this straight ticket voting, because it seems like something only the Republicans would do. I mean, this was a party line vote. The Republicans wanted to keep it the way it is, and Democrats wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And you may have this like notion of false equivalency where, it's happening in Texas and Iowa, and obviously those voters are going to vote for Republicans, but it's also happening in Massachusetts and Connecticut where Democrats will be the beneficiaries. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
I don't think that goes on in liberal areas.
I've never seen this option voting in Massachusetts, and maybe it's because I missed it or it would never occur to me to check it off. Do we know if this is something you can do in Massachusetts?
No. It's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never seen it. I know I've never done it. That I can assure you, but I don't know. We know that Iowa and Texas have banned this year, but that doesn't actually tell us what states have this currently and which states don't.
I mean, the first time that I voted for president, I was guilty of just going down the line, and even though I hadn't even researched into those smaller races, I just
Republicans,
voted for the
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Democrats. Yeah,
I voted for the Democrats, but
Yeah.
I probably just should have not voted, or done my due diligence to look into more than just the president and Senate and governor's race.
When I get my local ballot, and I used to do this, like when I lived in New York, my residence was still in Massachusetts, so I voted in Northampton, Massachusetts. And now, being a new Boston resident, somewhat new, I don't vote in every race. If I genuinely don't know, I will just leave it blank. I'd rather not have a part in the decision. And there are even sometimes some ballot questions where I will not, because I don't have a strong position, I will leave them blank.
You said charter schools this past go around, right? You didn't vote yes or no on the issue of
I didn't
charter
vote on the
schools?
charter school question because my instinct generally would be to have not provided additional funding for charter schools, but things were pretty hectic leading up to the election. And by the time I started actually researching the issue, I heard pretty compelling arguments from people on both sides of the issue, people I know personally. And I ended up getting to the ballot and not having a strong position one way or the other. And I didn't end up voting. Although I think if I were to do it today, I would have voted against giving the charter schools more money.
The same thing happened with the presidential race, too. You were going to go in there and vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and I got in there.
Changed.
I just didn't know at the end who really I should vote for. And I ended up leaving that one blank.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, that's not true. I've reported that I voted for Hillary Clinton, and I did vote for Hillary Clinton.
I want to see the proof.
You're not allowed to provide it.
Okay.
In Massachusetts, you can't photograph your ballot. And then, I guess you could photograph it, but you can't send it out publicly. I think there'd be no harm in photographing it and like showing it to someone personally.
It was very funny when I received my ballot this year because they told me as I was entering the voter booth that phones, selfie sticks, and all other things like that are not allowed. So that was like the one thing of caution that I heard.
How could they enforce that?
I know, yeah.
Anyway, that's it for the bonus show. We are off on Monday for the Memorial Day holiday. Are you into Memorial Day, Pat?
All about it, yep.
Are you really?
It's a reason for cookouts and flags, and it's the unofficial start of America, of summer.
There's nothing better than the smell of those vegan hot dogs on the grill.
They're the best, yeah.
Yeah.
Just make sure to take the plastic off.
How can you tell where the plastic ends and where the tofu begins? That's the real question. No, but are you actually doing a cookout?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
What do you like to bring to a cookout?
Vegan sausages.
Is that really what you bring?
Or like some sort of potato salad that's made with a mayonnaise that doesn't have eggs in it.
Veganese, I've read about that.
There's a whole world that you have to open your eyes to.
Yeah. I have a friend, but we're getting very off topic here, but real quick. I have a friend who has recently gone vegan. She lives in Florida. And where was I going with this? Oh, she was recently cooking. So she explained that a lot of the brownie in a box mixes are accidentally vegan. They're not marketed as vegan.
Oreos are the same way.
Right. Oreos are accidentally vegan. Yeah. So that if instead of adding eggs, you add, she claims, applesauce to the mix, you will be able to cook something that ends up being mildly reminiscent of a brownie.
Well, the only point of putting eggs in baked goods is so it sticks everything together. It's like a binder in that way.
Right.
And there's other things that will do that: applesauce, bananas, dates, and you can even buy egg replacer that you just mix with water. So it's easier than you may think, and no cholesterol too.
Is it fair to say that you've got binders full of vegan binder replacements?
I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. No show on Monday for Memorial.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.